Hey listeners, this is Peter, and welcome back to the History Shorts podcast. This humble show is brought to you by the Podcast Republic, your ultimate listening app. Discover and subscribe to thousands of podcasts from around the globe, yours truly included, all in one place. Download Podcast Republic now, available on Google Play and the Apple App Store. Today on History Shorts. In the spring of 1861, as the United States teetered on the edge of civil war, New York City, a bustling metropolis of nearly 1 million people, found itself at a crossroads of national identity and local ambition. The nation had fractured over the question of slavery, and secession was no longer a distant specter confined to the South. Here in the North, a city whose harbor pulsed with commerce and whose streets teemed with immigrants, radicals, and financiers alike, a unique and audacious proposition began to take shape: the notion that New York City itself could break away from the Union. At the center of this improbable drama stood Mayor Fernando Wood, a man whose political career was as flamboyant as it was controversial, whose ambitions for municipal sovereignty would nearly drag the city into outright rebellion. Here is the rest of that story.
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941,
it's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Fernando Wood, a Democrat of Irish descent, had long cultivated a reputation for brash, sometimes outrageous, political maneuvering. First elected to Congress in the 1840s, Wood became a household name in New York City for his very fiery rhetoric, his skill at navigating the labyrinth machinery of Tammany Hall, and his unabashed willingness to exploit political crises for personal and municipal gain. By the time he assumed the position of mayor in 1855, Wood was both admired and feared. He was a master of populist theatrics, capable of captivating the immigrant vote while simultaneously antagonizing reformers and moderates. Yet it was during his second term as mayor, in 1861, that his ambitions collided with the gravest national crises of his generation. The election of Abraham Lincoln in November of 1860 and the subsequent secession of southern states sent shockwaves throughout New York City's political and economic elites. Southern cotton and commerce had long intertwined with the city's thriving mercantile and shipping sectors, and many New Yorkers, especially Democrats aligned with Wood, feared that war would devastate the city's economy. But for Fernando Wood, this was more than a matter of fiscal concern. It was an opportunity to assert municipal sovereignty in the most audacious terms. By early April 1861, Wood had begun circulating a proposal, whispered in political backrooms and printed in select newspapers, suggesting that New York City might consider seceding from the Union if Lincoln pursued coercive measures against the southern states. The very idea was staggering, yet calculated. New York City, independent and self-governing, could theoretically maintain its commerce, preserve its southern trade, and protect its citizens from the ravages of civil war. Some of Wood's allies even argued that the city, fortified by its harbor and financially independent through its shipping and banking sectors, could survive as a city-state much like the commercial republics of Europe. The timing of Wood's suggestion was particularly sensitive, however. On April 12, 1861, Confederate forces fired on Fort Sumter in South Carolina, officially igniting the Civil War. In the days that followed, Lincoln called for troops from northern states to suppress the rebellion. Among New Yorkers, the reaction was mixed. Many rallied to the Union cause, while others, particularly Democratic-leaning immigrants and business leaders whose fortunes depended on Southern trade, sympathized with Wood's warning that coercion would devastate the city's economy. Wood himself, ever the orator, addressed the Common Council and local audiences with a mixture of paternalistic concern and audacious threat. He declared that New York City might need to stand apart from the war to protect its own interests. I quote that. A statement that, while never formalized as law, sent tremors of fear through both Washington and Wall Street. Historians have debated Wood's intentions ever since. Some argue that he was a shrewd, opportunistic person, using the threat of secession as leverage to extract concessions from the federal government or to solidify political control at home. Others contend that Wood genuinely believed the Union's coercive approach threatened New York's economic survival and that his proposal was a pragmatic, if extreme, plan to shield the city from the violence engulfing the South. Regardless of the intent, however, the public nature of Wood's statements produced immediate consequences. Newspapers across the North editorialized against him, labeling him a traitor or, at best, dangerously reckless. In Washington, the idea of the North's financial capital contemplating secession sent alarms through Lincoln's advisors, who feared that Wood's rhetoric might embolden Southern sympathizers elsewhere. Yet Wood's political instincts were attuned to the city's unique demographics. Immigrant populations, particularly Irish Americans, were skeptical of Lincoln's administration, weary of conscription, and protective of their own economic and social interests. Many working-class neighborhoods relied on trade and shipping connections that would be disrupted by the war. By framing the secession idea as a protective measure for ordinary New Yorkers rather than a purely political gambit, Wood tapped into anxieties that resonated deeply across the city. Political rallies in Lower Manhattan and Brooklyn echoed with chants of loyalty to the city over loyalty to a distant federal government, demonstrating the volatile mix of localism, economic self-interest, and ethnic identity that characterized New York City politics at the time. The proposal, however, was ultimately a paper tiger. Lincoln's administration, cautious but assertive, signaled that any actual attempt at municipal secession would be met with firm resistance. Federal authorities understood the symbolic importance of New York City. Its banks financed the war effort, its port facilitated essential trade, and its population represented a significant block of political influence. Meanwhile, New York's state government, dominated by more moderate Democrats and Republicans, distanced itself from Wood's rhetoric, signaling that any unilateral municipal secession would lack legal or practical support. Wall Street brokers, initially jittery over the city's flirtation with independence, quickly reassured investors that New York's commerce would continue under federal authority, dampening public fears of economic catastrophe. Still, the audacity of Wood's proposal left a mark on the city's psyche. For weeks, social salons, political clubs, and taverns buzzed with speculation. Would New York align with the South? Could the city survive independently if war engulfed the nation? Could a mayor using the city's economic clout and political machinery bend the course of history to protect local interests? These questions fueled heated debates across social and economic lines, contributing to an atmosphere of tension and uncertainty that paralleled the anxieties of a nation on the brink. Wood's political gamble was complicated by the outbreak of the Civil War conflict in other theaters. As Union troops mobilized and news of early skirmishes filtered through newspapers, public sentiment began to harden in favor of the Union. Civic pride, patriotic fervor, and the realization that war would eventually touch New York itself eroded support for secession talk. Prominent newspapers, once sympathetic to Democratic concerns about federal overreach, began publishing editorials denouncing Wood's proposals as reckless and dangerous. Clergy, business leaders, and civic organizations mobilized to reinforce loyalty to the Union, emphasizing the city's historical and economic ties to the broader nation. Nevertheless, Wood's near secession episode left enduring lessons. It revealed the fragile balance between municipal autonomy and national allegiance, highlighting how local interests could intersect with and occasionally challenge federal authority. It also highlighted the power of personality and rhetoric in shaping political discourse, demonstrating how a charismatic and controversial mayor could manipulate public sentiment, provoke national concern, and push the boundaries of accessible political behavior. For students of American history, the episode definitely exemplifies the tensions that arise when economic self-interest, ethnic identity, and political ambition converge in moments of a national crisis. Hopefully, today's episode has inspired you to seek out and learn more about this subject. For answers to questions, for sources for this episode, to leave a comment, or check out upcoming guest announcements, visit www.historyshortspodcast.com or look for History Shorts on Facebook and X. Stay curious, everybody, and I will talk to you all tomorrow.